conference. And we will be working with CASA and working with the National Coalition on Educational Equity, I am a board member of. So these three organizations are coming together to focus on Brown versus Board of Ed. You will see yard signs in the back. We're asking, when you leave, you take a yard sign. And the yard signs are asking that question. It's been 70 years since Brown versus Board of Education. How are our children? In light of the number of African American students that did not pass iLearn and iRead, this has become a national focus because it's not just here. This is all over the country that these kids have failed. And so, all over the country, the Black communities have been asked to come together to focus on it. Later on, the moderator, Reverend Maycon, is going to read to you the name of organizations locally that are supporting this. So this is not just a one-time deal, it is a local movement as well as a national movement, and we certainly need your help. Today, we're going to start off with the pouring of libations, and I need my helpers. We have 4 helpers here, high school students that are working with us. So I need one of my helpers to come up to the libations table that can help us to pour libations. It says Dr. Pat Payne, but Dr. Payne is home and is ill and could not be here. So we got the task of pouring libations, Dr. Ladd and I. We will do that. And then we will have a few words from Dr. Kathy Cornelius. And she just come in the room. So Kathy will be working with us on this project as well. And when we finish that, we're going to do a brief conversation with you on how are our children, and it's broken down into 2 parts. Part 1 is before Brown, 1954, and Pat Payne will be talking to that. And then we have a panel. We will have Cliff Ladd and John Laughlin will be talking to you about the historical timeline of the struggle for equity in this city. And the equity issue is still going on today. From there, Dr. Reverend Maycon will introduce the panels. We have a fantastic panel. They will bring you their solutions for the problems that we are today facing. And I'm anxious to hear what they have to say. We have the stakeholders group, and they are represented by Ray Porter, policymakers, Dr. Brandon Cosby, parent, Dr. Tamara Jackson, higher education, Elijah Burton, a student, Dr. Ms. Krishaw Sam, a principal, brand new principal at School 43 Delightful, and Lisa Harper. So, and she's representing teachers. Those are the stakeholder groups that we've asked to come to this meeting. On February 24th, we have a different set of stakeholders that will be talking to the audience. And those are the people who are representing social services, the families, the children that are having severe issues, housing, another issue, police shootings, another issue. So those people will be with us on our next meeting. So to start off, I'm going to move over next to Cleve.
Good morning, everyone. When the family has gathered, it is customary for us before we start to have a libation. And we ask the elder for permission to speak. So I'm asking our elder, Mrs. Diane Daniels, for permission to speak. Our elder has spoken.
As libation statements are read, you will respond with a word. The word is ashe. Say it with me. Ashe. Say it again. Come on, class. Long class. Come on, class. Ashe. And that means disobedience. An African proverb tells us that people who lack the knowledge of their past are like a tree. So be it. We pour libations so that we may show our children the importance of family. For he who is not taught by his mother is taught by the world. It is our youth who represent the promise of tomorrow. Ashe. For Ashe, did you say that she's pouring the water?
We give thanks to Mother Africa. I call it Al-Qibla. That's the original name. Africa is the Greek name. It's a Greek word. It is the cradle and the garden of civilization. Ashe. So in the spirit of remembrance of those ancestors that paved the way for us together as a community, concerned about the education of our children, we will pour a libation to honor the past so that we may learn from it. We raise the cup to the creator of all things, great and small, to show our reverence to the originator of our lives. Ashe.
We realize that our life on this planet is fleeting, and soon those who are not yet born will stand here and pour libations for us. We use cool water, which holds the essence of life to nourish our souls. God's word said, "For I will pour water on the thirsty land and streams on the dry ground. I will pour my spirit upon your descendants and my blessings on your offspring." Isaiah 44:3. We thank God for his promise. We stand on and trust his promise. We pour libations. Ashe.
We pour libations to celebrate the homegoing of our leadership. Frederick Douglass, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., W.E.B. Du Bois, Reverend Dr. Andrew J. Brown, Sister Mari Evans, Minister Malcolm X, Imam Muhammad Sadiq, Father Boniface Hart, Teacher Malam Martin. Our scholars and researchers, John Henry Clark, Chancellor Williams, Dr. Asa Hilliard, and other ancestors in the spiritual world whose writings and books have enlightened us, we pour libations. Ashe.
We pour these libations in gratitude to the Creator for our ancestors who built civilizations, survived the horrors of the Middle Passage, who stayed and psychic violence, who lived, laughed, loved, and who gave us life. We pour libations. Ashe. We call upon our elders, whose wisdom we seek in our endeavors. Ashe. We call upon our ancestors everywhere, the mothers of our mothers, and their mothers, and their mothers, and their mothers, and their mothers, and the fathers of our fathers, and their fathers, and their fathers, and their fathers. We call upon them with their indomitable spirit. For these foot soldiers are the foundations of our families, immortalized in our thoughts. We pour libations. Ashe.
We pour libations for the many Black families in Indianapolis who are carrying the unthinkable burden of weekly burying their children, our children. Instead of their children burying them. We pour libations. Ashe.
We invoke the spirit of over 20,000 ancestors who chose not to survive the Middle Passage, instead chose their grave as the Atlantic Ocean. We ask in remembrances that the elders assembled here teach their family's history and our African history, and the remembrances of each family ancestor, so that their children and their children and their children and their children and those in the spirit world not yet born arrive in a family connected through knowledge of self, with values anchored in communalism, to leave their footprints on the world as descendants of greatness. Ashe.
Sure.
Now please call your ancestors by name. Call out the names, and I will say, for me, my mom, Pauline Ashe. Say a name. Call your name. The ancestors' names.
Yes.
Continue. Ashe. Therefore, today we are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses. We cast our libation to the north, to the south, to the east, and to the west. Let us lay aside every weight and every sin that clings so closely, and let us run with perseverance the race that God has set before us and upon us. Ashe. Ashe. Ashe.
Ashe.
Kathy? She's going to come and lay out for us the evaluation work that we're doing in connecting with the National Committee on Brown versus Board of Education. And she will tell you what that looks like and how we're going to do that. And after Kathy, we have Dr. Pat Payne, Dr. Clayton Ladd, and Mr. John Law will come to the mic. We have a wonderful surprise. Miss Vicki Daniel, well-known singer and a person that has graced us many times with her presence, is going to ask us to stand, and she's going to sing, lift every voice and sing.
Yes, let's sing it together. Everyone stand, please. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the lifting skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. facing the rising sun of a new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
Good morning. You have in your packet a survey that we need you to complete today and meet with us. We are collecting these at each one of the 3 forums, and then we will have questions. So what I need you to do, this is what we usually do with your children or students, pre-K through 12th grade. It's 3 questions, and it's called a KWL chart, right? It's what I know. KW, so what I know, KNOW, what I want to learn, or what I want to discuss at a future event or during this event, right? So what I know, what I want to learn, or what I want to discuss. And then the L is, well, we're going to change the L. The L is what we need to, we're going to change it to a KW action, so action. So what we need to do from this event. So it's not a KWL, it's a KW action. So where do we go from here? So what do I know? What do I need to know more about? And then the other word is action. So today we're going to have some chart paper up, and I'm taking notes, and we have all the wonderful researchers and educators, and everyone's in the room, right? We have all experts and brilliant people and community leaders in the room. And so we're going to try to collect all this data and offer other services, offer whatever you need, because you know this. We can't, that's some of our problem, and some of our problems as researchers. People always come in our community and tell us what we need to do, right? We know what we need to do. We know the problems, we know the solutions. It's just
Things up here. All she's got to do is just go in and
So
spotlight.
that's what we're gonna do today, and you'll hear me, kind of go around. We're gonna also give you some cards and paper. We want you to jot down some things, and we'll kind of keep our board up and going. So our charts are gonna be like, changing living documents. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker and researcher is the Honorable, I have to say, is the Honorable Queen of our Queen, Dr. Pat Payne.
Did you just introduce me, Cleet?
Yes, I did. No,
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I am so upset that I can't be there in the room with you this morning. But this arthritic hip that I'm dealing with tells me to stay home and rest. So, but that can't stop anything because we have way too much work to do. So Diana just told me to talk about, just for a few minutes, what it used to be like in the good old days. When I first came to the Indianapolis Public Schools, that was in 1962. As soon as I graduated from IU, I came straight to IPS and taught 2nd grade there. But when I first came into my classroom, and that was the picture that was up on the screen. Is that picture up now, Cleet?
Yes.
Of the classroom?
Yes, it's a connecting. Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, she can hear you.
This on.
Okay. Now that's not me, but that certainly is a semblance of the classroom that I entered, because at that time, Black teachers taught Black students, white teachers taught white students. So I entered my second grade classroom, looked around for the books
Okay, so
and the resources that were there, couldn't find a one that reflected the students that I was teaching, except the chapter on slavery. And I said, oh, no, 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 no. So we say in IPS, and I'm so happy to know that our amazing, incredible superintendent is in the room with you this morning. We said, oh yes, please recognize her. We said, oh no, no, we got to do more than have slavery reflecting our children. And so we say in IPS, we've gone from a moment to a racial equity movement. And I want to just share the timeline with you. So could I have the next slide, please? Now.
It's up.
Okay. We went around, or I certainly went around, because the first thing you do when you want to start a movement is find other people of like minds. I also went to the Teachers Association. I said, we got to do something about this. But it wasn't until 1979 that the school board approved the resolution for the teaching of Black history. Now, you know, we didn't sit around and wait on them till 1979. We were working the entire time, including developing a curriculum guide. In 1987, I taught second grade for about 25 years. Didn't want to go to any other grade. But it was in 1987 that the then superintendent, Dr. James Adams, came and asked me if I would start the IPS Office of Multicultural Education. I did not want to leave that classroom, but I knew we could reach more teachers and get more resources into the classroom if I did. And so the Office of Multicultural Education opened in 1987, and the Crispus Attucks Museum of African American History opened in 1998. In 2015, that's when the Office of Multicultural Education evolved into the Office of Racial Equity. But also in 2015, that is when the Racial Equity Institute entered the lives of IPS. And that's when our 2-day 9-to-5 training started in systemic racism. But at that time, the powers that be didn't believe in mandating. So it was a volunteer thing if you wanted your school to be a part of the racial equity training. But then in 2019, that's when everything turned around, because enters Dr. Alicia Johnson, who came. Would you all just give her a big hand? The people who are in that room, she has done an amazing job. She said, oh no, this will no longer be voluntary. This is mandatory, so that everyone who touches the life of an IPS child is going through this 2-day 9-to-5 training to show them how systemic racism works and how, in fact, those of you who are sitting in the room right now are sucking in the fumes of systemic racism. It doesn't miss a beat. It's everywhere, and it shapes the outcomes of everything that it touches. That is why our vision, our equity vision in IPS is to reimagine an IPS where student outcomes cannot be predicted by race and ethnicity. Because right now, you know who's going to be at the bottom even before the test is given. Something is very, very wrong there, and we intend to change that in IPS. We have recently also changed the name of our office from the Office of Racial Equity to the Office of Racial Equity and Inclusion. Now, Could I have the next slide, please? Okay. Some of you, I'm sure, have heard the name Dr. Janice Hale Benson, who wrote many books, but my favorite is Black Children, Their Roots, Culture, and Learning Styles. Listen, back when I was coming through, when a child was failing, we took it personally. We didn't use the teacher's lounge to talk negatively about families and children. We used the teacher's lounge to try to figure out how we could help a struggling student. That's what we were about way back when. This quote from Dr. Janice Hale Benson, could someone in the room read this quote, please?
Baseball, batting, and music, but often have differently demonstrated their skills in the classroom. Bring a real life experience to the classroom by teaching numbers and hopscotch, adding, subtracting numbers and dice, playing checkers, cards, or using coins to make a change.
Amen. And that's just what we did. I'm telling you, you could walk into my classroom. First of all, you saw the big purple rug on the floor and teaching centers. You saw dice being used. I'd throw those dice. I'd say, now add, subtract. They connected with that because at that time, the schools were in the neighborhoods where the children lived. That made all the difference in the world. You had to work with your parents. Parents were in and out of my classroom all day long. Again, I say, we took it personally when a child was failing and connected right away with that parent. We used football scores for math. We talked to parents about, now, send your child to the grocery store and make sure that you count and make sure that they're bringing you back the correct change. See? This also tells us, the quote that Janice Hale Benson said, that it was hard, even though our children had the skills, the brilliance, transferring that over to what was required by the school was difficult. And so that too was the teacher's job. Because if a child doesn't get it one way, you're supposed to keep trying until he or she gets it.
You hear that?
Okay, that doesn't happen now, I'm telling you. Janice Hale Benson, Black Children. Let's go to the next slide. Here's another one of the people that I have. Dr. Lisa Delpit. Another one of my favorite books is Other People's Children. Education in a Multicultural Society, America's Greatest Challenge. Could someone please read Dr. Lisa Delpit's quote?
Teachers must not fear to take course that tells them how to treat their students as multicultural rights. In other words, those that tell them how to identify differences and interactional or communicative strategies and remedies appropriately. Strategies and remediate appropriately. They must also learn how the brilliance of students bring with them in their love.
That's right.
Appreciate the wonders of the cultures represented before them. They cannot appreciate the potential of those who sit before them, nor can they begin to link their students' histories and words to the subject matter they present in the classroom.
Amen. Thank you so much for reading that. That is so true. I don't see this happening like it should be. I mean, when we were putting sentences up, spelling sentences up on the board, math sentence, you would include something in that sentence that was from the child's neighborhood. Maybe it was the name of the church that they went to. Maybe it was a community center, so that they could identify immediately with the skills that you were trying to teach. Don't see that happening like it should be now. In my classroom, I called it freedom with responsibility. Because after you did your work, I mean, that was required. Then you could get up and go to one of the teaching centers that had checker games. It might have even had Monopoly and so forth. So, and all the time they were learning skills. All the time they were learning those skills. I have a note here that says lived in the neighborhood where the child went to school. That was a difference that we don't see now. Our conversations in those teaching lounges were so different from what we hear now. Now, this last slide, if you would go to the last slide. Diana, this is one of Diana and I's main mentors and teachers, Dr. Asa Hilliard. We spent 2 weeks in Kemet with Dr. Asa Hilliard. Would someone please read this quote from Dr. Asa Hilliard?
When you begin to do things that raise the achievements of the poorest and disenfranchised students, you may not always get applause. You need to be ready for that.
That's right. Don't think when you're doing things right to raise the scores of our children, to raise the excitement of our children to want to come to school, to want to be there. Why is it that children can go in one classroom and just act up like I don't know what, but go in another classroom and they're sitting there learning? That's the teacher. That is the teacher. Remember when people used to they didn't want you to copy what they had on their bulletin board. That is so not necessary. Because if a child is learning from something you're doing, then you want to share that with other teachers. See, when you begin to do the things that raise the achievement gap, we know of superintendent, in fact. His last day with IPS was when they had in the paper that he intended to raise the achievement gap of all Black students. That's the way it was then. They didn't want to see that happening. They don't want to see that happening now. Why do you think what is going on in Florida is going on? And in Indiana, they got a playbook, the legislature, to keep our children from learning the truth about who they are, where they come from, and what they must do. That is why it's so important. And Diana, I praise you for the work that you are doing out here in the community. It's relentless. We cannot let up. Now, the last thing that I'd like is just share a few comments, in fact, quotes from a book written by Dr. Asa Hilliard. And the name of the book is To Be an African Teacher. That's to write it down. He wrote it many years ago and it's still relevant. To be an African teacher. Ooh, there's so many quotes here that are relevant. I don't know which one. African teachers place a premium on bringing their students into a knowledge of themselves and a knowledge of their communities. African people place great value on who each person is, on who the community is, and the honored place that each member of the family occupies within the community. He goes on to say, African teachers respect mastery and seek through apprenticeship to learn from true masters, masters who are valued agents of the African community, who are steeped in the deep thought and behavior of the community, who exhibit an abiding, unshakable primary loyalty to the community, and who are in constant communication with the wise elders in the community. The African teacher believes that each child is a living son, S-U-N, a living son, a divine gift of the Creator. For the African teacher, teaching is a calling. Ooh, let me say that again. Teaching is a calling. Teaching is spiritual. You've got to feel it. You've got to understand. This is what you were made to become, a teacher. We don't need teachers who are just in there until their husband graduates from med school and they need help with the salary. We don't need teachers like that. This says, for the African teacher, teaching is a calling, a constant journey towards mastery, a scientific activity, a matter of community membership, an aspect of a learning community, a process of becoming a library, a matter of care and custody for our culture and traditions, a matter of a critical viewing of the wider world and a response to the imperative of Ma'at. And lastly, the African teacher is a parent, friend, guide, coach, healer, counselor, model, storyteller, entertainer, artist, architect, builder, minister, and advocate to and for Black children. Thank you very much. Thank you.
What an introduction. Appreciate that history. I want to say a very pleasant good morning to each one of you. In case you don't know, I'm the moderator today. I'm Reverend Dr. Charles Fontaine-Macon. Can I say this? I'm a proud pastor of Chapel African Methodist Episcopal Church in the beautiful city of Indianapolis, Indiana. I had to get that out. Amen. And I want to do a special thanks to Martin University as well. And I was just wondering, is Reverend John Gerting, if you can come and just give a welcome, because we appreciate you opening up your heart as well as your home this morning. You all, let's give Reverend Gerting a round of applause.
Well, God bless each and every one of you all. And I'm seeing so many family and friends here. We welcome you here to Martin University. And I really should have Reverend Donnell Howard do this. He's our walking mascot for Martin University. So I'm going to try to do it like he does it. Welcome to the Martin University, the only predominantly Black institution in the state of Indiana, where we are in, of, and for our community. And so for you, we want you to feel like you are at home. You are at home here at Martin University. Such an important topic that it is not lost on us that we realize that we have no students at Martin University. We can't get them through K-12. Amen? Does that make sense? So that we can't get them to do our students in the right mindset and with the right achievement levels, then we don't have students here at Martin University. So it is critical that we support events and individuals who have been in the trenches for so many years doing this work. We don't have any problem walking beside you all and making sure that Martin University is holding up the banner of education, because clearly Dr. Father Boniface Hart and Sister Jane, that was at the very core of why Martin University was started back in 1977. So on behalf of the president, Dr. Sean Holston, the staff, the instructors, faculty, and all those here at Martin University, welcome you here. We thank you for being here, and we will welcome you back any other time that you want.
Thank you once again, Reverend Jackson. My brothers and sisters, we have a two-part for our panel discussion.
Switch over now.
And I would like to introduce Dr. Cleve Lance, and I talk to him so often.
So now you got your advance
Dr.
right here,
Cleve
plus,
Lance,
plus,
we were
plus.
talking about
Okay.
two parts, and then the second part of this is going to be John Lofton. What happened
Saying to me,
before Brown versus the Board of Education? And then the second part is going to be what happened after Brown versus the Board of Education. So I do ask that you all also feel the liberty to get your questions out. If you have any questions for the presentation between Dr. Cleve Lance and Dr. John Lofton, and then for the panelists as well. It's open for you because this is about us organizing so that we can have together really do an objective assessment. We must be respected and we cannot be rejected because we are God's true business to the world, and education is one of the stepping stones to make that happen. Dr. Cleve Lance.
Okay, I'm gonna just step in real quick. Can you hear me with my educator voice? Okay, this is our agenda. So take your agenda, and I put lots of notes on Dr. Pat Payne, right? So you have Matt, John Lofton. Our part of their name and take notes, right? And then Dr. Kelly and I will correct you. Thank you. Okay, yes, did everyone get one of those? We were gonna pass those out. Did everyone get, okay, good. If you have, that's what we're gonna collect the questions on. If you don't have them, we'll bring them to us, okay? Thank you.
Okay, first, we're gonna ask the panel to come and take seats. Please come and take your seat. We have a honorable panel here.
And all of our illustrious panelists are on the program too.
We just ask the panel to have a seat and get ready so we can move along. My name is Cleve Lance, Cleve Hassan Lance. I am a proud Martin University alumni. Yes, I'm from 25th Hillside. 25. You know, I used to run this neighborhood. Ain't that right, brother? Reverend? God is good. He took some cold Mason diamonds. All right. So we're going to begin. It's called, this is about building the public will. And we're going to try to talk about why today's schools are failing the majority of our children, why they're failing our children. So I'm going to let next slide, please. Okay, so what we're going to talk about is what structures led to the Board of Education decision I'm in the Brown versus Board of Education decision. What was the purpose and policy of Brown versus Board decision? What was the goal then? What has happened since? Where are we now? And where do we go from here? So I'm going to introduce to you my associate. He and I worked together since the 90s. Since the 90s. And our big friend, our big sister back there, Dr. Wanda Reese, who put us together for Indianapolis Public Schools IPS Alternative Education Department. All right, we'll talk a little about that a little later. John Lawson.
So what the council has done here is, 2022, has focused on standardized test rates. It's met with parents and students and community to inform them about their failing schools and their children of failing in school. They're educating the community on how this happens, and they're trying to empower parents and students and community members. In fact, they pointing out that the education people, law enforcement people, psychologists, if you will, and the culture have seen the instances of where white children face trauma and how that affected their life later on. But they fail to, these same groups fail to see how the trauma experienced by black children, how that's generational. Next slide. Here in 2023, the council is again looking at the structure of Brown versus Board and seeing this historical perspective. What was the result of Brown versus Board for the African American communities? That's an important question. And really the question that I see is the most important. Why has busing children until 2016, I think busing, I forget when it started, but it ended in 2016. How has it contributed to the culture of standardized testing and failure?
So, African American children in kindergarten to grade 2 have stronger reading skills that are equal to or greater than their white counterparts. And who gets the credit for that? The parents, exactly. 3rd through 6th grade African American students experience declining test scores. Who gets the credit for that? African American students, despite their abilities, fail at a greater level as they move up in the grade levels. And this is documented by Ed Trust. Who gets the credit for that? The teachers. That note below is, my mother and sister taught me to read and do math when I was 3 years old. And that's why it's so important that we get parents involved, engage parents in educating our children. I'm not going to say their children, because they're all our children. And so, once we get parents engaged, get parents involved, parents take control of the education of their children, of our children, and we will see the test scores climb, the success rates climb, the transition climb. Now, in 2005, 88% of African American students failed, 80% failure rate, reading rate. And in 2005, 94% African American students had a fail rate in math as well. Now, I'm going to share this with you real quick. In my background as an alternative education, as an alternative educator, we did project-based learning and project-based assessment. You learn by doing, not by being lectured at, or to have a teacher with the back to you, she's writing the views, she's writing the board, students back there. And the thing about project-based learning is you're learning through using your hands, dancing, You know, when she talked about J.C.L. Benson and Lisa Dilbert, when Dr. Beck talked about them earlier, and some things they did, you know. This man right here taught angles and geometry to the students, to our students, with a pool table. That's their frame of reference, exactly. High school students who had struggled with geometry. We use the basketball court. Or we have them measure the tires on the ceiling or the floor. Then time equals area. In 2023, 87% of African American students failed their rate for reading. We dropped from 2008, 1 percentage point. And then 90% of African American students have failed rate in math. So we dropped again. Sources of chocolate and the Indiana Department of Education. Something is wrong.
Thanks for the pat on the back too. I do realize that the brain learns and makes connections to what it already knows. So I have to find a student frame of reference. I use the pool table as a frame of reference. So I can connect new information to what the brain already knows. Even Jesus used, when he said, like the mustard seed, he used a metaphor, like and as, to connect new information to what the brain already knows. So learning the child's frame of reference is important. But here we have a new matter that's relevant to this era, and that is the privatization of public schools. And what we find, according to the council research, is that in these so-called charter schools, that there are fewer experienced teachers, fewer fully licensed teachers, fewer highly qualified teachers, and that the students in these schools have a greater number of intern, transition, and permanent substitutes.
So we're going to talk about parent engagement too. Students have been moving the I'm sorry about the weather, but you know, when we watch this place again, it's a good place. So, as we talk about parent engagement, you know, children's education to empower the families and parents. Parents have a greater effect on African American student academic success in their real lives. So we got to empower parents. We have to help them understand how they can help their students, help their children. We want community engagement. One of my teachers was Maya Angelou's mentor, Sister Mari Evans, who lived here and taught us composition at the Boys and Girls Club, because we were not given in school. We did oral history projects where we interviewed Tuskegee Airmen, Women's Army Corps, 688 Women's Army Corps people. We interviewed Willa Beatrice Brown Chapel, the first Black woman in the United States to get a pilot's license, who lived here in Brightwood. So we learned directly from people. They were sharing their oral history with us, and they empowered us to give us a sense of pride. So we weren't marketing and spray paint our community, our neighborhood. We took pride in our neighborhood. Teachers have a greater impact on African American student success by teaching African and African American culture, heritage, and history. Dr. Andrew J. Brown, Father Boniface Harden, civil rights leaders. Many of our students we talk to about Black History Month don't know how many times Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. came here. How many times Frederick Douglass got off the train right here, off of Sherman Drive in North Massachusetts Avenue. We want to improve matriculation to 86% of African American parents expect their child to earn a four-year college degree. African American parents must realize that their children are less likely than white children to take college prep dual credit courses. School choice is black choice. We pulled that up from Roland Martin. I didn't like Roland Martin until I heard this and saw it and checked his website. It's very informative. We want to increase culturally relevant curriculum in the community provided by faith-based and youth service organizations because they impact our children as well. We're connected with the National Equity Project and the Black Teacher Project to attract and retain African American educators and women and men. And we want to create a movement for implementation of the best practices and remedies to ensure groundwork supporting educational successes. We're going to talk more about that in February 24th. That's the advertisement. That's where we train teachers. We train teachers in Afrocentric African American curriculum. And and so how are our children? You can find it out. You see the back of the program. You see the national, and then also it's supposed to be advertising for February 24th. You gotta register now, register early, so we can make sure that everybody's taken care of, all right? All right, we're gonna move along and get to the panel and let me introduce our moderator. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm John Lawson. I'm an IPS graduate, and I'm taught in IPS. I love IPS, that's my school system. And what me and my sister did a couple of years ago is create the Lofton Center on the history of IPS. Because the history of IPS is the history of Indianapolis. And the history of IPS is also the history of Black Indianapolis. So it's very important that we get this straight because there's a lot of people outside who don't want this history to be told. So what happened in 2021, the Spirit and Place group allowed me and my group, the Lofton Center on the History of IPS, to present. We did a presentation on IPS and the KKK. In 2022, we did the IPS caste system. In 2023, we talked about all the big money coming into IPS to buy the school board elections. And finally, I did put a paper together on community schools, but these are transformational community schools. I want to decolonize the community school concept and put more democracy in it. So if you want to talk about these, let me know. Thank you.
Let's give it a hand. Keith, Ned, and James. I'd like to introduce our panelists for today. I do ask if you have any questions, that you write them down so that we can move smoothly in this process. Our first panelist is Dr. Brandon Cosby. He is the Chief Executive Officer of Flanner House Indianapolis Incorporated, Indiana's oldest community service agency for Black community, which focuses on moving people from crisis and instability to a place of self-reliance and independence. I would like to give you accolades, sir, because I am truly impressed. I do go to the bookstore. I love the bean pies over at the cafe, and the garden is very inspirational. And I look forward to having chapters one day doing the garden in the community and doing the farmers market as well. So I'd like to thank you for your contribution to the community. Our second panelist is Ms. Chriselle Sam, and she is the principal, the new principal of James Whitcomb Riley School number 4. And she is yours. At one time, you probably know her as the assistant principal and interim principal at Arlington Technical High School. And then she returned because she's the 6th grade teacher. That was her first assignment when she was starting off in the academic, Christian, and community service, as well as being a teacher in IPS. She went to school 43 first, and so now she returns to her first love, and now she is the principal at that school. Amen. Our next speaker will be Ms. Lisa Carlton. She's the first grade teacher in the Metropolitan School District of Washington Township. She proudly proclaims that she is a first grade elementary school teacher at Springfield Elementary School in Washington Township since July of 2015 to this present day. And she is interested in helping the teachers as well as the students become empowered, because she understands that it is in unity we rely on only hope, and that education is the stepping stone to a better tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce to you Lisa Parton. Next to her is Dr. Tamara Jackson, and I would like to say very impressed with your bio and your history in the educational field. Dr. Jackson is the dean and the professor at Indianapolis University, Duke University of Indianapolis. She is in the School of Education, and she is the professor dean with the early teachers education of that school. And Sister Jackson has been a professional for over 24 years in the school system, and besides teaching in the college level, she is also bragging about being a first, second, and a third grade teacher. So she is very well-rounded. And as a teacher educator, she draws upon her own classroom experiences and focuses on the complexities of teaching diverse learners and attending to social justice issues. And by the way, Dr. Jackson considers herself a scholar activist, because she is truly committed to social justice and reform. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce to you Dr. Tamara Jackson. Porter, thank you so much for your time. Your bio and your history is so extensive. I just need to say thank you so much for serving on so many committees. State Representative Greg W. Porter is a member of the House of Representatives General Assembly, representing the 96th Indiana House District. He is currently the ranking minority member on the Indiana House Ways and Means Committee, and it says that he's the president of the Black National Caucus of State Legislators. My brothers and sisters, I introduce to you State Representative Greg W. Porter. Thank you so much, sir. Also joining with us, and I'm just so happy that Sister Daniels always includes a young adult that's making footprints, stepping stones, and showing us that all is not lost. The media puts our youth down so much, but there are plenty that are being lifted up. And this afternoon, I would like to introduce to you Elijah Burton. He is the son of Reverend John Burton, and he is at Tennessee, Charles Tennessee Accelerated Academy, and one of the bright and morning stars that are uplifting. We look forward to great things from this young man, and he's going to be representing the student stakeholders. My brothers and sisters, Elijah Burton. I'm asking that each one of the panelists would please speak directly into the mic if you would hand it down as it goes on. I would like you to have 7 minutes to give your statements of concern as well as any solutions that you see that would aid in the cause for us to uplift our educational community. After that, I will be giving you a series of questions that have come through the registries, those that are online and submitted their questions. I will take a few from the audience as well, and then we may have our solutions. A very pleasant good afternoon to you, Dr. Brandon Cosby.
Thank you. It's a lot. Good morning, good early afternoon. I spent most of my life in my career as an educator, as a teacher, as a principal, as co-founder of the first charter high school in the state of Indiana. Worked in and around Indianapolis. I spent time resident in Shortridge as the high school for the Indianapolis Public School System. My concerns are deep. As a father of 3 black boys, 2 of whom are still school age, it is deeply disquieting to me to see the state of affairs of the education system. And in that, the biggest part of the problem for me, and I ran into this as a professional and I run into this as a parent, is that the model of schooling that we are using to educate our children is antiquated. It is a model of obsolescence. The problem with getting authentic school redesign and real, true school change is based off of the fact that all of the folks who are in charge of making the actual decisions to create new models of school went to models of school that work for them. And therefore, they keep thinking, well, if we just change this little bit, or we tweak this, or we just change this part, or just change this part, then eventually it's going to work. Because what we keep saying to ourselves was, well, it worked for me. Well, let me be very clear. If you are Black in America, the education system did not work for you. You survived. It is not because of your brilliance, it's not because of your genius, it is not because of your intellect, it's because you got lucky. You were fortunate enough to have people intervene on your behalf and in your life that created the situations and conditions and the opportunity for you to be successful. A lot of references have been made to alternative education in the room this morning, and would be remiss if I did not give honor to one of my dearest friends and personal mentor who is no longer with us, Dr. Sheridan Wilkins, who would always say to me that children cannot use their minds well unless they're around adults. And so we have to begin to raise the question about what is it that we're actually preparing the adults to do with our children inside the walls of these classrooms. Because what we're really measuring is the success of schooling is based off of our children's ability to pass a test based off of a set of standards. And from the onset, when Indiana began talking about this notion of standards-based education, we got it wrong straight out of the gate. Because you see, the standards that we talk about by which we're now beating our children over the head and literally killing their spirits and their souls. Because see, basically what's happening to our kids in the streets is what's already happened to them intellectually, and spiritually, and emotionally. The physical act is just the last act of what has already happened to them and been done to them. But the problem with it is that the standards-based approach to education is that the standard is not a gold standard. It's a minimum standard. But we have been addressing it and taking our strategies and our methodologies of how we design and create our curricula and our schooling around teaching to that standard. So we have been teaching to the full, as opposed to recognizing that, no, this is the bare minimum of which it is. It is not a gold standard. And so what we should be doing and what we ought to be doing is having conversations about what authentic learning looks like and what authentic teaching looks like. Because until we do that, we're going to continue to get the same, if not worse, results. And we see this in conversation again and again and again about the fact that, well, we need to see more Black teachers. You know what? Great, more Black teachers, fine. Personally, I don't care what color they are. What I care is whether or not I got teachers that believe Black kids can learn. It was Thurgood Marshall who said that, you know what, it doesn't make any difference if a snake is black or white, it's poisonous and it bites you, you still won't die. And that is precisely part of what the problem is that we don't acknowledge and really take into account what it is that we're subjecting our young people to. Because for too long, we keep hearing these same conversations over and over. Our children are so smart, they're so talented, they're so capable. They are. I don't disagree with that. But what we don't ask the question is that if these kids are so smart and so talented and so capable, why are these children making the active choice to leave our schools and be on the streets with people where they know people are trying to kill them, and see that as a better option than being inside some of our schools? The last poets wrote, "Our children have become extra large reflections of shattered dreams and broken promises, and a dream corroded by times puffed away in a hail of bullets and guns." We know everything we need to know to do everything that we need to do. What we don't have is the courage and the will to do it. Google, I got fired. I'm the only principal in the city that actually got fired for running a successful school. I got fired for insubordination, to which my response was, hell, you knew that about me before I got there. Right? You knew that about me. But the poorest school in IPS also had the highest daily average attendance. We had the highest teacher. One of the few principals that existed inside that school system that never had a single grievance filed against them by an educator and demanded more from teachers than any other. We had no bells in the school. Why? Because Black kids can tell time. And you don't need to do things like hall sweeps and use police officers in your schools like wardens. If in fact the teachers are doing brilliant things and are excited to see young people when they walk through the doors. This is the problem, is that when we have the opportunity to create something different, rather than a seed with a ripple effect of change that it would require to go throughout the entire system to do it, it's easy to eliminate the change rather than to embrace the sea change and exist in chaos for a while the new change takes hold. And until we have the courage to do that, unfortunately, we're going to continue to bury our kids. Unfortunately, we're going to continue to have these same conversations about the fact of why is it that our kids aren't achieving more? Because we are making our kids be subjected to a model that is archaic and obsolete, and they have to check who they are at the door in order to be able to survive the gauntlet that we're asking to in what we call an education system.
Dr. Cosby, let's say thank you so very much. Very profound. What one takeaway would you like for us to leave with and build upon right now?
Reading. Reading, 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 reading. Understand that when we talk about the math performances of kids, the majority of our kids are failing the math portions of these assessments, and not because they don't have the computational skills, it's because they can't comprehend the questions that are being asked. I didn't learn to read until I was almost 16 years old. I'm profoundly dyslexic. Okay, it's reading. And it is making sure that our schools actually have teachers who know how to teach reading. Because when you switch from learning how to read to reading to learn, which happens at the 3rd grade, which is why you will see the data tell you what it does. Kindergarten through 3rd grade, we do a better job for most people of educating our children. And 3rd grade through high school, we do a better job of screwing it up than everybody else in the world. Because once they hit that 3rd grade level, you don't have educators walking the hall that actually have the capacity to teach young people how to read when those kids come through the door in 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. Kids can't read, but you're just gonna keep teaching and talking like they can. You're just gonna push because you have a curriculum to get through. So it doesn't matter that if you know for a fact that the kid's sitting in front of you can't read, you're just gonna put more, faster, louder, and harder. When in reality, all you're doing is pushing and pushing and pushing and widening the gap between the likelihood of that child ever being able to be successful. Until we take it offline and make sure that those kids know how to read and that they are actually around adults who know how to authentically teach reading, none.
Thank you so very much. Which leads to our second panelist, Ms. Chriselle Sam, who is an elementary school principal. And I know you hear loud and clear. We look forward to hearing your presentation. Thank you.
So my charge as an administrator is to want to create a space for students to come in and to create a safe space, not just for students, but also for the teachers, for the parents, for everyone that is interacting with those students. And so my goal is, as administrators, to build a team of teachers and to create a space where students can see themselves in the hallways, in the building, in their classrooms, in the curriculum that's being used to teach them. My charge is also to make sure that I bring awareness to the understanding that parent involvement looks different. Parent involvement doesn't always show up in the space of a parent actually coming into a school event or every school event. Parents can be involved in a number of ways, making sure that they are reading literature and things that are coming home to their school or coming home, making sure that they are connected with the teachers. Because there may be parents that because of work that they may not be able to physically show up to the building, but they may be communicating with those parents or with those teachers, via email, phone calls, virtual meetings. There's just a number of ways that parents can show up. But my task is to make sure that I am committed to exposure and access for our students, making sure that all of our students are exposed to the variety of instruction and curriculum to allow them again to see themselves and to promote their success. And that happens with genuine support, opening doors and safe spaces for parents to come in, for students to be able to come in, and for them to know that they are seen. And so my number one charge is to make sure that every student, every parent, every teacher that enters the building, that they know that I see them. Not only do I see them, but our team members see them. And to start by creating genuine relationships. At the center of everything, my influence for me starts with relationships. So that if I can make sure that I'm genuine in my relationships with my teachers, with my students, with the people that we bring on board to help support our students in their academic growth, but also understanding that we're looking at the whole child. So it's not just the student coming in and what we have to do to support them academically, but what are we also doing to support that student socially and emotionally? Because we know that culture, the climate and culture has to be there, and it has to be positive to set an environment for our students to learn. So that is my hope and my goal, is to create safe spaces for our students.
What would you like for us as a community to do to assist you with your endeavors?
To assist with those endeavors, I'm going to go back to what I just shared about exposure and access. And so any time that we can allow our students to be exposed to the wide array of opportunities for them, and to have access to attend events, to go to places, to go to field experiences, it opens their eyes and allows them to see beyond just their community, but it allows them to see our community, Indianapolis, as a whole. And so for me, it's about exposure and access.
I'd like to say thank you so very much. We have some questions for the panel. We do ask that you stay. Here is our first grade teacher in Washington Township, Sister Lisa Martin. And Sister Lisa, you've heard what these done. Would you like to share with us as we continue to move forward?
Sure. So good morning. Afternoon, I'm not sure what time. I do not often take the mic, so I'm just asking that you extend grace. I encourage my students to be risk takers, and I cannot ask that of them unless I'm doing it myself. So I'm going to take a deep breath, and I have my notes, and here we go. So I think one of the first things that I think about when I'm trying to raise achievement or just make my students reach their potential is I need to work on myself. I need to make sure that I am doing the mirror work. I'm doing the digging into the experiences that have shaped who I am, the people who have contributed to who I am. I need to make sure that I am working from a healthy place when I enter my classroom. I need to make sure I am whole when I show up. So I need to make sure I am seeing the genius in my students and not the deficits in my classroom. So how do I show up is my primary goal. Secondly, I need to work on my craft, my talent, and my skill set as an educator. So what do? I look to my community. One of my most recent role models is Goldie Muhammad, Dr. Goldie Muhammad. She did some research, and she wasn't the first, but she's who I'm reading right now. She did some research into the history of Black literary societies. I was not familiar with this. So these were groups of educators and other professionals that got together and they wanted to improve their knowledge and improve their community. And it wasn't just an intellectual endeavor, this was action oriented. They shared what they knew and how they improved themselves with their community, with other teachers. So she came up with 5 pursuits, and identity is the first of them. So when I go into my classroom, I want my students to know who they are and the legacy that is in their own history. And that legacy is not rooted in struggle, and that legacy is not rooted in trauma. When I'm teaching, I want them to know, how can you have a problem with illiteracy when one of the oldest libraries in the world is in Africa? It's in Morocco. All right. I also want them to understand I can teach my standards and teach their history as well. So when I'm showing them about light in Edison, I need to also introduce them to Lewis Blackburn, who improved upon the fiction. When I'm talking about map skills and partner direction, how can I leave out Dr. Gladys West, who laid the foundation for GPS and the global positioning system? So I need to make sure, yes, I'm teaching my standards, but I also need to make sure they know the rich history and their legacy. So the second pursuit, first is identity. Just going back to identity, I was just listening to a podcast and they used the analogy of when you take a group picture, the first thing you do is you try to find yourself in that picture, right? When my students come into my classroom, I want them to see themselves in the classroom, in the literature and in how I interact with them, in the lessons that I teach. So second pursuit, skills. So the skills are the basics. Someone said earlier, the standards is just the bottom line, right? But I need to make sure that I'm doing that to the best of my ability. So how do I do that? I build on what they know already. I build on what they're bringing into the classroom. Do I stay there? No, that's just a launch pad. So there's another quote that I like to think about. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you rise to the level of your systems. So what systems do I have in place to make sure my students are grasping the material and moving beyond the material? I need to make sure my lessons are engaging. They need to be more excited about coming into my classroom than they are creating problems in my classroom, right? I need to be so engaging that they're going to check themselves. You know, just stop playing around with this partner, right? So I need to make sure the content is solid. And also, I need to work on the whole child. We do affirmations in our class. I need to work on self-regulation in my class so that they're primed for learning. And I need to continually seek learning opportunities for myself. I'm a part of the Black Teacher Project, so I can continue to grow as an educator. I need to connect with community stakeholders. Dr. Jackson has poured into me. Dr. Turley has poured into me. And Dr. Etienne has poured into me at the IUPUI, or is it now? IU Indianapolis, okay? So I need to seek opportunities to increase my skill set. The third is the intellectualism. Knowledge stays in the mind, and this is something from Dr. Muhammad. Knowledge stays in the mind, but intellect is action. So with everything that I'm teaching in my class, what are we doing with it? There's a game that I like to play called Tug of War. So I introduce a concept or I introduce a question. Do you think students should miss recess when they misbehave? All right, the students have to study both sides of the argument. They don't know which argument they want to be on, which side they're going to be on. And at the last minute, I say, okay, you're pro, you're con, go for it. And the object of the game Tug of War is not to win, it's to balance the seesaw of arguments, all right? So they need to, and what does that do? That teaches them multiple perspectives to have. So we went through identity, skills, and then intellect. And then the next pursuit is criticality. I want my students to be able to question and don't just accept things as they are. So part of our practice, part of my practice and routine is when we solve math problems, I get up there, okay, you explain how you got it. Okay, and you defend which strategy you use to solve this math problem. And the students that are their classmates, they have to say, okay, why did you choose to solve it that way? Wouldn't this way be more efficient? Okay, that's my last one. Joy. Joy. How am I bringing and honoring joy in my classroom? Is it a healthy place to be academically, spiritually, emotionally? So those are the 5 pursuits that I try to keep in mind as I craft learning experiences.
Thank you so much. Before you turn the mic over, or how they say, before you drop the mic, what one central takeaway would you like for us to move forward as we move with our youth?
Okay, the central takeaway is partnership. Collectivism is a part of our African heritage. We need you to be present in the schools. We need the community there. We need eyes watching what's going on in the classroom and at school board meetings, okay? It's okay to call people out and call people in, to borrow from Dr. Erica Buchanan Rivera. It's okay to call people out and call people in for accountability. So partnership with the school systems is what I'm asking.
Thank you so very much. Now we have someone that's worked in the elementary all the way to being the dean and the professor of one of the shown us greatest universities in the whole world.
Watch out now.
All right. No, I said one. Oh. Dr. Jackson, good afternoon. As a professor and dean of early teacher education, we would like to hear from you on how we can grow and go according to the will of excellence.
All right, good afternoon. So one of the things I'd like to share is that Ms. Harton was my son's first grade teacher last year. And so when I saw that she was on the panel, I was like, oh, okay, yes, I have to say yes, I have to sit next to her. She is the truth. And every teacher should aspire to be like her. Everything she just said, she is everything. My husband and I we moved to Indianapolis in 2015, and we have curated our son's experiences because we are educators and we know the literature that his Black identity has to be affirmed first up until age 8. Once he has that affirmation of Black identity, which includes being an intellectual and a scholar, he then will have resistance and he can deal with all the stuff that we all deal with. And so this woman right here, when she was teaching science in the water cycle, she was teaching them about Flint, Michigan and Jackson, Mississippi. And they made protest signs and they marched around because they said everybody deserves to be treated like a human being and have clean water, right? And so that is what, as dean of a school of education, what I'm trying to do is produce more Ms. Hartons. One of the things that I'm very clear about is that I don't look to white folks for my affirmation. And I wish that more Black leaders could take that stance. My litmus test is not how well white folks like me. I really don't care, right? My litmus test is how much change and impact am I making in the limited time? Because once they realize that you're not looking for them, right, for the affirmation, you're not gonna be in that position for very long. This is my 5th year as dean. When I was a classroom teacher, I had a mentor who said to me, they'll let you do anything you want to as long as your test scores are high. So that's kind of what I've taken into my deanship, is pretty much people don't mess with me as long as I keep the things that they care about, right? We are the 5th largest producers in the state of teachers in the state of Indiana. A part of that is because students understand when they come to study with us, we are not going to produce teachers, which by the way, the teaching force is majority white. My School of Education is no different. I'm at 27% research teachers of color. Those kids understand that they are gonna come out and they are not gonna be afraid to go into urban communities. Why? Because we have their courses on site at schools. I'm grateful for partners like Dr. Johnson and IPS. We come and we live at the school for 3 semesters. They take their social studies, literacy, science methods, all of that. Schools are our laboratories. We can't teach them how to be a teacher if they're not inside of schools. So they read their books and their theories, and then they go down the hall and they go into classrooms. And then they come back and they say, well, this is what I saw, but it didn't connect with what I read. And then we have conversations with teachers, and we invite teachers into the IUPUI classroom to talk about their practice. One of the things that I really wanna, I'm gonna give you let me get my phone to work here. I'm gonna give you I have 4 things. Okay, the first is Black children are worthy of investment. So when I told you I don't look for white folks to affirm me, when my chancellor says to me, you know, people are saying that you're focusing too much on Black stuff in the School of Education, I remind him Black children, well, her now, we have an animal. I remind them that Black children are worthy of investment. I don't get any complaints when we're focusing on any other ethnic group, but when we focus on Black children, somehow that's a problem. Also, I wanted to say, listen to Black parents. As a Black parent, Ms. Harper knows this, when we show up in spaces, we're not just there for our children, we're there for everybody's children. So when something happens to anybody in that school, we are there to help, support, and defend them. The other thing is stop experimenting on Black children. As a scholar and a researcher, I'm in the data all the time. And the things that we do masked as innovation are actually experiments on Black children. And that's no different than the Tuskegee experiment. It's no different from all these other things that we know throughout history have harmed us as a people. So stop experimenting on Black children. We know it works. It's a matter of will. Do we have the will to do it? And then the last thing I'm going to say is do not compromise on teacher quality. Mediocrity is not an option. So right now, our state and the country is experiencing a teacher shortage. And it is very tempting to say things like, well, do they really need 4 years to be a teacher? Can't we just do this quick thing over here, send them to this quick boot camp and put them into the classroom? Mediocrity is not an option. If they are not intellectuals themselves, if they're not reading themselves, if they're not studying their practice, they can't do what we expect them to do in terms of educating our children. So in that spirit, I always give people things to read. The latest book that I'm reading is called Schoolhouse Burning, Public Education and Assault on American Democracy. The other thing that I keep coming back to, you see all my tabs in it, it's highlighted, and that's Black Education, a transformative research and action agenda for the new century. We are an intelligent people. One of the things I have encouraged my faculty to do is take all of this, because you know, in the university, we get to sit around and read and talk and do all that kind of thing. And I say, take all of this and put it into plain speak so that the people understand, and we equip them with tools and resources when they show up to advocate for our students. Last thing I'm gonna say, I started with Ms. Hartman, and we'll go back to Ms. Hartman, because I told you she's my litmus test. My baby's in 2nd grade this year, and basically at parent-teacher conference, we were like, he likes school, we wanna keep it like that. And she was the best, that's your standard, right? I don't know if you get any shade in the hall. But I'm gonna go back to her and I'm gonna say, She spent her summer in Ghana this year. My husband and I walked into the classroom for open house, and we saw the Adinkra symbols on the wall, and we were like, praise God, we're in the right place, right? And that is because she understands that she has to pour into herself so she can pour into the students. This is a little plug for my institution. We, first of all, no public school of education in the state looks like mine. I'm only one of 2 Black deans in the whole IU system on any campus. My dean's office is all Black leadership. My associate deans are Black. We're 65% faculty of color in the public school of education.
So you might want to hit that up there.
And it's not me though.
There's no way to do that.
Over time.
There's no way to chat with anybody.
Over time.
You just say, yeah, do it for your folks.
But one of the things that, with Ms. Hart and going to Ghana and understanding who she is, it has to do with the fact that culturally responsive, relevant teaching has become a buzzword. It's not a checklist of things that you do. It is a belief system. And you can't teach the children what you don't know yourself. And so starting fall 24, our School of Education will offer a dual degree option. You can come and study to be an elementary teacher with us and get a BS in elementary education. You can also get a BA in Africana Studies. And because we have mandatory tuition, it's not gonna cost you anything more. You can do it in 4 years and come out with 2 degrees. But those teachers are going to be more equipped, like Ms. Hartman, to be able to deliver culturally responsive pedagogies because they're gonna take a deep dive into ethnic studies. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Before you drop the mic, what one central takeaway would you like for us to have?
Invest in teachers, support teachers. One of the things, everybody's trying to recruit teachers, everybody's trying to get folks to come into the field of teaching. One of the messaging that we've talked about is our history shows us that for Black people and other communities of color, teaching has been a stepping stone into the middle class. You can change the economic trajectory of your entire family by becoming a teacher. And so we need to invest in teachers.
Thank you so much. Representative, I'd like to say once again, thank you for your leadership and government. We would like to hear perhaps some of your, within 5 minutes, what we can do besides voting, be conscious of the issues of education so that when they do come up, that we're making the right choices on our voting. And what would you like to do to have us to assist you in your legislative endeavors? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, thank you for this atmosphere of togetherness, because I know that whatever comes out of here, you will pass on to someone else. When someone said who's not here, you say, how did we make it today? And what you are, you're diplomats in regards to this incredible event today on Saturday morning on December 9th here in Indianapolis at Martin University, the Martin University. I think you gave me 5 minutes, and I'll probably take it 4.5. And I will use them half of it in the introduction. But I think one thing that is not good, I know one thing that we want to do is that I've been blessed to be in the Jones Center for a long time, 30 years. General education for 18 years, charter house education, and done it nationally for some national groups. Already No Child Left Behind, to working on that and understanding, talk about, someone earlier said, a highly qualified teacher, and then that qualified teacher stuff didn't work, and came back to a highly effective teacher. So you gotta understand what happens with the experiments that we have within the school system, because we constantly change the words to fit their agenda. And I'm talking about the super minority or the white folks or the power elite in our society. I'm gonna just talk a little bit
today because I think we need to keep our eyes on the prize. We talk about Brown versus, Brown versus Board Education, 1954 all the way to the 70s, and in 2020 when they changed things in varsity Brown versus Board Education. But I think one thing we have to look at is look at the economics. How do we fund public education? What is really happening with those dollars? And we have to keep our eyes on the prize. The traditional public schools. Because most of our kids are in traditional public schools. So that's a fact. I think another important instance we have to address is looking at K-12 education. The state of Indiana has a $45 billion budget. Of that, 51% of that goes toward K-12 education. But y'all gotta understand, this whole reading initiative, y'all need to watch that now. The whole I read and the retainment, we're gonna really have to watch that's like I read or retainment about, it's like 4.0, because it has happened in the 90s. They changed it, came back in the early 2000s. Now they're coming back again. So we have to understand, we gotta watch that rhetoric of retainment of our children and knowing reading and reading comprehension. But when it comes down to that billions of dollars going to K-12, we have to understand that even though those dollars are there, they have shifted a lot of those dollars to their own people that they want to help, okay? Trying to be right, I'm getting old, I'm trying to be more of a statesman, but, you tell me how somebody makes $20,000 a year family afford and get vouchers. You go to the private school, okay? $20,000 a year, all right? That's ridiculous. But it happens, and guess what? It's not just in Indiana. I was in Nashville a week ago, and the whole concept of I read and retainment, or the concept of reading, is being rolled out by the governor of Tennessee. This is a national movement, y'all. Don't think that we're unique. We have become a petri dish for the power elite and what they want to do in regards to education, and we have to understand that it is a national movement. When it comes to addressing the complexity index and funding education, we have to look at what's going on with full-day kindergarten. We still have a pilot project for full-day kindergarten. Our kids don't have to go till they 7. Okay, then we're gonna retain those children if they not reach a certain level, and they may not be to the 7. That means they may be 12, 13 years old in 5th and 6th grade, or 4th grade, right? So we have to understand what is really going on. Is this about educating all our children, black and brown children, or children that are mobile, that have poverty that's in their lives, or are we just trying to create a pipeline to have some specific outcomes that they want to have in regards to education? Now, if we want to do something, what we have to do, we have to continue to ask that we fully fund full-day kindergarten. That the pilots, that get away from the pilot, funded, period. We reverted $8 million back from tuition program last year. We take that $8 million and help, if the child is not reading right, put that money into the $8 million into those schools that need help with regards to reading comprehension for our children. It's simple. It's not new money. It's money already spent, and I'm going to have a bill that says we're going to take that $8 million, any money that we bring back, and put it into those schools. We're also going to continue to ask for. You got to also understand there's $50 million out there, $100 million for the next 2 years for education. But unfortunately, we have Superintendent Johnson, Dr. Johnson, is that you got to spend the ESSA money in order to get the more money out there for the help with education. So what they've done is said, well, until you spend all the ESSA money, most schools have not, you can't leverage any more money that's out there, that's in the budget for us to continue to educate our children. So those are the issues that are out there right now. We talked about this on the short session, will be out by probably March 14th. But I'm telling you, just put on your seatbelts and watch it, because we gotta keep our eyes on the prize. They will continue to divert and continue to experiment and use words to create their own outcomes when it comes to not addressing children that are Black, brown, and low-income children here in the state of Indiana. And until we really hold their feet to the fire, we will continue to be experimented on here in the state. So probably took more than 5 minutes, but I try to keep it down.
No, and the online virtual people too, he just gave you one of the questions, that the end of it, the action items, both Dr. Jackson and Representative Porter gave you the action. You repeat it again real quick, I'll make sure, because I'm running around and trying to take notes. But I heard you say one thing is fully funded kindergarten.
Fully funded full-day kindergarten, and the pilot project is after now. We have $24 million, $26 million in the pilot project, but we also always revert back. Remember, we have money out there for education. They diverted and they spent all the money, the $8 million. Now, if we're going to say that we have to read and look at retain our children, take that $8 million and do tutoring to bring them up to speed. That's what we have to do. We can't let them divert that $8 million somewhere else. And that's for the whole state. Well, you know what it is in particular communities.
Okay, the last thing, Dr. Jackson. Understand how it's really legislative.
And let's Okay, so the question is, what are your stances on grade 3 retention if students do not pass IRE? So if we're going to retain students and then we're gonna put them back through the same thing that didn't result in success, why would we do that, right? Why would we do that? Brandon talked a lot about something happens to our kids. If you are around young people, you understand that from birth all the way up until kindergarten, they are curious, they ask you why. If you're around the 4-year-old, you know they drive you crazy with why, right? They're always asking questions. And then something is happening when they go into the school building, and all of a sudden, those questions dry up. You walk into classrooms, dialogue is not being fostered. Children are raising their hand, but they're responding with one-word answers and not full sentences. It's like we're kind of dumbing them down when they come to school. Now, this is a generalization. This is not every school, right? But I am against putting children through the same routine that didn't result in success the first time. And so then if there's gonna be something different, then we have to be careful that it's not something different where all the Black children are getting diverted into a specially tracked program or space, right? So that would be my first take on it, Kat.
And I know one point that they asked me is, what are some solutions? So we can't continue to subscribe to the destructive rhetoric of the supermajority of the general assembly. We can't continue to let them prevail. We have to fight them through the media or through the works that we're doing here today. I am going to propose legislation because they asked, what are the outcomes? We will put money to address these concerns, to provide resources for the IRE program to provide about $60 million, that's already there, of the $100 million that's out there, put about $60 million of that into remediation type programs. Now, please remember that they said testing is remediation. We used to only have a pot for remediation. Now they say testing is the remediation, so that they co-mingle that philosophy. But we're going to look at one-on-one tutoring to provide the specialists for all minority and majority low income students that do not pass IRE, and by the legislation that we're going to propose, and the school districts will now allow disadvantaged schools and IPS to assess up to $35 million in remediation funding to provide due to the state budget. So we're going to get more money. I had posted $400 million in budget 2 years ago. We did not get anywhere with it, but it is specifically for Black and brown students.
I'm gonna say one more thing. So anybody who knows me knows that I always look at our ancestors for the answers, right? When they imposed those false literacy tests on us and said we couldn't vote unless we passed these literacy tests, the community got together and we taught each other enough to be able to pass those tests so that we could vote. It's the same thing right here. Our babies can do it, they can learn how to read, and so we can get together, we can set up literacy circles, we can do this. We can provide the support that the children need to get them to pass these tests. The community can do that, right? So I just wanted to add that.
Thank you so very much. Brother Elijah, come on and bring us home, brother.
Wow. Most of, as I'm reading out my notes here, most of what I have here, it's been said. It's been said. Dr. Payne, she was talking, and every single time she would say something that I had written down, and I'd be like, okay, that's nothing. So it's a lot going on, but what I really do want to start with is honing in on children at a young age, because that's really where it starts at. We need to help them develop a love for learning. Because once they start falling behind, and once their literacy and comprehension starts to slip, they clock out. They stop, they don't want to go to school, they don't want to do the work, they don't want to learn, they feel like it's too difficult. And they find it really easy to just stop, to give up. And they really don't need to. If I'm a third grader and I don't care about my grades, I'm over here sipping on Capri Sun. I'm not worried about that. I'm not doing it. So, and it's not the children's fault. These children should be going into systems that help them want to love learning. And then they're not. And here's the thing, 30% of Black children are succeeding. It means there's 70% of children that are doing what we said, they're sipping Capri Sun and they're acting out in class. So, and they're being in class time. So, if I'm a child in a room with 10 children and seven of them are acting up, what am I gonna do? Yeah, exactly. So, and really think about the narrative that drives for us as people of color. Because this is of Black children. So all this is all Black children, all of this. And it's not, and obviously it's not the kids' fault, because it's really the adults' responsibility to give us a system that wants to give us the learning, the love of learning. So if we don't ever clock out, we stop doing it. Okay. And that's why most people do their job. I would imagine that's why she does her job, because she loves the children. She loves doing what she does. She loves giving people the love of learning. And they shouldn't, we shouldn't have teachers that are only, I guess you could say, harping in on the 30% of children that are succeeding. We should be worrying about the entire population of the children. If there are 70% of children that are succeeding, we be working on them so we can get 100% of children that are succeeding. And here are some solutions that I came up with. We have mentorship, obviously, earlier learning. So there's a whole lot of talk about, I learned how to read at this age. We should be learning how to read at 3 years old. Yeah, 3 years old. We need to be learning how to read. I don't know how old I was when I still learning how to read to this day, but I don't know how old, like when I really started learning how to read, I don't know how old I was. So everybody needs to be learning, you know. Curriculum that gives children self-esteem and not having to worry about paying for pencils and notebooks. That shouldn't be something that we should be harping on, and suspending children every single day. Because those are the children that need the most help. I would definitely say that. Because when we see the killing and the shootings, those are the people that are being suspended and being sent to the streets to get murdered. So we are the ones that are not me, because I'm not a teacher, but the school systems are the ones that are sending them to their death. So I'm gonna say that. And there's one. Do I have time to harp on one of my solutions? Okay. There's one solution I do want to come up with, or want to harp on, and that's peer support and the environment they create for each other, especially at a younger age. That's what they do. Because if my mother cannot fully support my education because she's working 3 jobs, who's influencing me? Everybody else around me. They're the ones. And that's where majority of it's coming from, is the child's brain is maybe only 5 to 8% developed. And that's why if my friend tells me don't do your work, that's what I'm going to listen to. I'm not going to do my work. Because he wants to go do this, or he wants to go talk about this, or he wants to have fun with this or do this. And that's what's gonna happen in the classrooms. Because they're thinking, I don't really understand, and it's too hard to me anyways. They're thinking, what do I have to lose? And often the answer is nothing. And also something I want to say is, what she was doing for those children should not stop just because you hit a certain grade. I haven't done anything like that since maybe 2nd grade. And that's a problem. I'm a junior now. I'm about to graduate, I'm about to go to college. And I'm not doing anything that's making me think outside the box. I'm getting a piece of paper, and I'm being told to write down the same answer, the same questions based off the text. We need to be doing something different. It shouldn't stop at a certain age. So, yeah, I'm done. Thank you.
Before you drop the mic, what would you say your success has been as a student, academic? What has contributed to your success?
Definitely my parents. Okay, like all my parents. Because whenever I wanted to clock out, those were the people that were clocking me in. They say, get up, go to work, or not go to work. Go to school, go to school, learn, want to learn. I was like, fine, and I'll do it. And that's why I'm in the position I'm in now. Because I wanted to learn. I still want to learn. Sometimes there are those days where I still want to go to school, but I still feel like there is a need because education is the key to success.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
So my question is, parenting was much different in the 50s and 60s. Our parents were less educated but engaged. How do we improve that today, the parenting skills? And so to answer that question, the first thing for me is that I have to honor my parents' experiences, because if a parent did not have a good experience in school, they may be reluctant to come in to meet with us. And so we have to show ourselves and prove that we are really different and that we really care. Students and our parents, they understand when we're genuine and when we're not. And so we have to create a safe space for them to be able to come in, to talk with us, and we have to talk so that they understand what it is that we're asking of them. And so if there is something that a parent needs to understand about curriculum, instruction, our skills and strategies. We can't use the educational lingo when we're talking to them unless they understand that, but we have to speak just in layman terms so that they understand this is your child's present level, this is where they should be, but we have to let them know that we're here to support them, but not just hone in on the negative. And so for me, I always make sure that the teachers start off and that I start off with something positive, because every student that enters our door, everyone has great things about them. We have to tap into that child's potential and find out the things that they love to do. But it first has to happen in a genuine space. And then we have to have real conversations. When we have those conversations with parents, we have to do it with grace. We have to afford our students grace. We have to afford our students, and I'm always saying grace and mercy, because we have to give that to our students. And in those conversations, we have to be able to come alongside the students and help them to see the reality and the potential of where they are, and just help them understand that you're not where we need you to be yet, but you can get there. And then provide them with specific step-by-step strategies to help them get there. And so what that may mean, I heard our young students share that sometimes parents are working. And if parents are working, then how do we come alongside those parents to make sure that we afford the correct volunteers to help that student, the correct after-school program or before-school programming, and small groups, so that we can help parents see the potential and see that they're not doing it alone for their students. And then also, we have to be able to meet parents where they are. If there are barriers and a parent can't make it to the school, then as a school, then we can go to them. We have community coordinators, we have social workers, and we do home visits. And so we're not afraid to go and do home visits and meet parents where they are, because we have to create an environment for them to feel safe. And so sometimes it takes us going to their community, going to where they are, and then we can build that relationship and get them into the school for community activities that we may have, or family engagement activities that we have. And so it's just understanding that if the parent is not aware, if they need help educationally, then we have to also provide them with connections in the community to help them grow, to help them meet any deficits that they might have. Because sometimes it might not be that I don't want to do this, but I am struggling in this area too, and I don't feel comfortable teaching this to my child, or math. I know math has changed, right? So the way in which we teach students, has changed. We know that 8 + 8 is 16. We know that when the students are decomposing numbers and parents learn addition in a totally different way, we have to offer help sessions for those parents to help them understand. And so my goal is not just to always assume the negative for parents, but we have to assume the best. And so we have to help those parents get what they need and be transparent, be real, be bold, but do it all in one way.
Thank you so much. Next question.
Thank you. The question is, why has it increased the voucher dollars, and why it has not been taken too long? I think we just started at July 1st. I'm quite sure there will be some challenging report of individuals that can make up to that $220,000 for a family of 4. And I just want to frame it like this, that those individuals that are able to take advantage of that, if you have 2 children within the school, they receive those vouchers, that's a payment. That is a tax cut. I would put it like that. If it's $10,000, that means that family gets a tax cut. Versus those parents that don't have those dollars, that can work 2 or 3 jobs. To try to, if they want their child to go to said school, they don't get the same cut. And we've had legislation trying to address that, to give public school parents at least $1,000, also like they give for the homeschoolers to get $1,000 tax credit also for their children at home. So I'm quite sure there will be something coming down the pipe, but it's right now I don't think we understand the magnitude of the way to transform reverse $400 million that could have been used for our students. And we also realize this, back in 2010, Mitch Daniels, the governor at that point, took $300 million out of traditional public schools and helped the budget. And we never got that $300 million back. And I don't care what people say, they say it doesn't make a difference. You take some out of my pocket, as long as I'm living, that money could have gone to maybe somewhere early.
I'd like to say thank you very much. Let's give our panelists a great big round of applause. This is the Indiana Council of Educated Students of Color. This is our second forum, and I'd like to say thank you to each one of you all for coming out and hearing and participating. Your participation doesn't stop here, but it goes out into the wider community. One of the questions that was asked is, who do we connect with in order to receive help implementing my tutorial strategies in the community? I think that you should get in touch with Principal Sam, and she can give you some additional direction to help you out with that. But thank you for your questions as well. The other questions will be put on posted so that you all can see them, and then you can get some answers for those as well. Because of time and staff limitations, we're getting ready to close. I am going to turn it over. I want to let you know, God loves you and so do I. And it's like the farmer told the crowd, I'm going to plant you now and dig you later. Amen. And Sister Robinson and Dr. Cornelius, if you can come up as we prepare to close. Oh, I need you all to join with me and just do one more quick thing. Let's give Sister Diana Daniels one more round of applause for being so great and having a vision and sticking with that vision. Thank you so very much. Amen.
Good evening. I should say evening almost. Our next presenter is a very close friend, a person that I've admired for a number of years. She's been a superintendent in many different school districts, and a principal, and an activist. She's taught in Egypt, she's taught in Africa. And so she has just written her latest book, and she's gonna come and take questions from you, as well as talk a little bit about her book. She's well aware of the conversations, and she has some solutions. So I'd like to bring on board Dr. Eleanor Renee Rodriguez from San Diego.
Good afternoon, everybody. That did not work. Let's start straight out the gate. We talked about culturally responsive teaching practices, and I said, good afternoon. And what did I hear? Nothing. Let's try it again. Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
You make my heart proud. Thank you very much. We started out this morning. Was that this morning? And we had to get permission from our elders in order for us to speak. Thank you for doing that initially. But now I have to get your permission for me to step on a few people's toes during my presentation. Do I have your permission?
Ashe.
Ashe. Thank you very much. My name is Eleanor Renee Rodriguez. Diana Daniels is my girl, for real, for real. Thank you, Diana. Thank you for all the panelists and everybody that have been actively involved to make this event happen. I want to start by saying that question that was initially asked, how are our children doing? If we look at it from a student perspective, it'll sound like this. Ooh, you in trouble? I'm gonna tell mama. Raise your hand if you a mama. Y'all should be getting the impression that we gotta do something, mamas. I know the rest of the people are important, but remember the statement of it takes a village to raise a child? Well, we're the village and we have to get it done and not wait on other folk to get it done for us. I need you to have a piece of paper and a pencil. I know I have 30 minutes, but I won't take it because I know we're supposed to be gone already. So take out a piece of paper and a pencil. I'm going to do a statement and then I want you to write down immediately what your initial response is. Why are our children in the position they're in and how are our children doing? Andrea remembered the day it happened.
I was sitting in geography class. I was a sophomore. The day started out really bad. My mother was on my case for my bad grades, and all the teacher had to do was put my test on the desk. When he saw my test, he said, "Your kind don't deserve a desk." I didn't even hear that "your kind." I heard it but didn't believe it. I snapped in my meanest voice and said, "Mr. Rossi, just what is it about me you can't teach?" On your notepad, write your very first thoughts. Take a couple more seconds. Thank you. My goal in the short time that I'll spend with you is to get you to see that we have everything we absolutely need to have in order to educate everybody's children. Raise your hand if you remember the quote that is most often said by Ryan Edmonds. Our goal is to understand that we can teach everybody that we have the will to teach them. That was one of the 7 questions. Let me get to that very quickly. There were 7 categories that were online, questions that were received, and I clumped them together and see how we'll answer them. Will you put up the projection of the clock? They were, how do we address the will? In the book that's gone to the publisher, ready to go, I addressed 3 issues that can solve that problem about the will, as well as integrity and ethics. And that is, we focus too much on achievement gap. There are more gaps than the achievement. One gap is the achievement gap. Second gap, the access gap, which our representative talked about. We don't have access to it. And the third gap is the attitude gap. Everybody got an attitude, but it happens to be bad, good, indifferent, or something. Our challenge is to get people on the right track so the attitude is right, the students will do what they're supposed to do, and they will be successful in their careers when that get to that point. One of the other questions was, how do you get students involved? They get involved in everything else. That means you need to keep their attention. Uh-oh, I just saw something disappear. Oh, there you go. That's the picture of the clock I was referring to. And instead of using the 30 minutes, I'll just go around the clock to show you all the answers to the questions that have been addressed. Culture was one of the questions. If you go to, let me see, how many of you actually are familiar with the Adinkra signs already? And how many are there that you're familiar with? I know Pat, Miss Pat, you're gonna raise your hand. Thank you. Our challenge is, we already know what we need to do. How many of you have already heard it takes a village to raise a child? Okay, that African proverb has been turned into pictures, which are now referred to as Adinkra signs. For example, the one that's going to be in position number 1, who knows what that is? More than likely somebody said Sankofa bird. That means you're looking back as you're still going forward. That means we're looking at 70 histories of Brown versus Board of Education. What was said then, what was said now, and what are we going to do to keep going forward? For example, number 2, one of the other questions had to do with culture. If you don't have culturally responsive teaching practices in place, then you're not going to get the job done. I should not have to drop my culture at the door. Now I'm in school, I have to use somebody else's culture. Come on, y'all. So that section of the book specifically talks about culturally responsive teaching practices. One of the other questions had to do with what kind of strategies do we use in order to meet the needs of the students that we're currently serving, as opposed to the students that we served in the past. We don't have Dennis the Menace and Leave It to Beaver in class today. We might have a Beavis and Butthead, but then we have other children who are there have more needs than the needs that are being met. I know the representative mentioned about the funding. Y'all need to follow the money. Will you repeat that, please? Follow the money. If money is being distributed, you need to know where it goes. The only reason they change things is because people are watching and listening. I need us to put on our big eyes and start watching carefully. Another one of the questions was, well, what are we going to do about the suspension and the expulsion rate? Well, we got to get them in schools first. After we get them in school, we have to make certain that the teachers, the principals, the central office, any stakeholder that's involved in the book that Diana has, Blueprint for Action, each one of those stakeholders has to be responsible for their part. Remember, we are only as strong as our weakest link. And if the weakest link is in the central office, then you got a problem. If the weakest link is in the secretary's office, you got a problem. I don't care what part of the link they are playing. If it's at the community center, there's a problem. Diana has gathered 20 different groups, although I see Allen Chapel AMU was listed twice. 20 different groups that are participants online. They are our stakeholders. We need to have them help us be responsible for getting the job done. This is a serious endeavor, and some of us are playing games. Another one of the questions was Black History Month. Teachers, and teacher, I want to be in your classroom for real though. The one on our panel. Our challenge is, if you don't know the children, how are you going to teach them? I repeat that. If you don't know the children, how are you going to teach them? I see you, Miss Pat, Dr. Pat. Our goal is to make certain that the children are getting what they need to get to be successful. So just take another look at the clock, because I know I can go on forever, but I won't. If we look at any of those numbers 1 through 12, what the book basically does is, from a Sankofa standpoint, I look back to see what actually worked in the past that we can bring forward in order for it to work now. So I did that. So that's the historical perspective, the soul, the cultural responsive teaching practice. Let's go down to what I can see. That turtle. There's a section in there about adaptability. This is what we've been doing. Here's some strategies that we need to use in order to make it different. Anybody, pick one of the symbols. Okay, let's go up to what would be number 10. That's the area that we're stuck on right now. Ooh, somebody got the arrow and she's doing her thing. Thank you very much. That stands for control, quality control, and the assessment piece. So it means after we've gone through all the other training and all the other pieces that are the actual practices in the book, it's time for us to assess. The challenge has been, parents, please do not allow teachers to only assess your children when it's time for a state test. Way too late. There needs to be formative, which means time after time after time. Go a few steps, check to see how you're doing. Go on a few more steps, check to see how they're doing. Not step and step and step and step and step, because then what happens is we start doing like Michael Jackson and moonwalking. They just keep going farther and farther and farther behind until we do like the student said, we end up dropping out. Or we're up to the 7th grade and can't read, so we decide, I'm going to start acting a fool so I can get suspended. I don't want nobody to know I can't read. They get suspended. Oh, they're going to make me come back in 30 days. Well, I'm going to kick somebody so hard they're going to expel me. Well, after that, where do they go? School to prison pipeline. Come on, y'all. I don't know how many minutes I use. I know I'm starting to get hyper, so I think I may need to go to questions and answers instead of me going any further. Okay, y'all don't have a question? Then I have a question for you. I have 3 boxes. Each of these boxes has 3 boxes in them, and each of those boxes has 3 boxes in them. How many boxes do I have in all? I'll repeat the question. I have 3 boxes. You know you got a pencil and paper there. Feel free to use it. I have 3 boxes. Each of these 3 boxes has 3 boxes in them, and each of those 3 boxes has 3 boxes in them. How many boxes do I have in all? I can't hear any answers, but I'm going to tell you what you probably did. Pardon me?
36, 27.
Oh, I hear a bunch of answers.
27.
But there can only be one right one, right? Okay. I don't want us to focus. Write this down on your paper. The process is as important as the finished product. Write that down, please. The process is as important as the finished product. That means, how did you get the answer? That's the process versus what the answer is. So I know I'm not even there, and I heard some people holler out 27, 36, 39, 26. The process is as important as the finished product. I'm not even in the room, and I can see some of y'all still counting boxes. The challenge is we have to get our students to understand how they learn. In the book, it talks about the multiple intelligences. It talks about differentiation of instruction. It talks about asset-based education. It talks about all the pieces that need to be in place in order for our students to be successful. So raise your hands, and Diana, look around and see how many other people literally drew boxes in order to find the answer to the question. That means those individuals are probably comfortable with the visual spatial intelligence. That means they need to see the problem in order for them to answer. How many of y'all are talking to other neighbors to find, did she say 3 boxes and 3 boxes and 3 boxes? You gonna be the first one sent to the principal's office because you just will not close your mouth. But the problem is that's your multiple intelligence comfort zone. So we have to teach our children to identify what their comfort zone is and then use that in order for them to learn what they're gonna learn. Did anybody do it as a mathematical equation? If you did it as a mathematical equation, then you used your the multiple intelligence of logical mathematical. Whew, that's not my cup of tea. I'll do all the other intelligences according to Howard Gardner, except for the logical mathematical. I know I can put some stuff together, but you give me some visual spatial, some bodily kinesthetic, I can cut that back a bit since COVID, since I have to be a distance away. You can have interpersonal, you're talking with others, you can have intrapersonal. I want to come over here and do this all by myself. Just leave me alone and let me get the answer. The challenge is students don't understand how they learn in order to incorporate it into their daily lives. That's something that needs to be done. Anybody come up with a question yet? I need everybody to stand up.
Is there an answer?
Put your hand on top of your head and just give it a little massage. Why would I do this? Actually, I had you stand up so you can give me a standing ovation, although I can't see it. But what I want you to recognize is that our brain is such a powerful tool.
Yes, it is.
Our brain is such a powerful tool. And now I want you to take a big yawn. You've been sitting down for a long time and been very patient with us in our time frame. But I want you to recognize that in our brain, we have the capacity to do any and everything almost that we want to do. The challenge is if you can use your imagination. Let's imagine that my brain is cut in half. One half is the cognitive side, and I'm just thinking. And that's what schools focus on, unfortunately. Thinking. The challenge is the other side of the brain is not used until they get out on the playground. Oh, let's have fun. The affective side. So that means we have to incorporate the cognitive and the affective parts of our brain in the class on a regular basis. And if you use culturally responsive teaching practices, good done. Diane, I'm not gonna say anything else, maybe.
We would like to know the answer, Dr. Rodriguez.
I sure wish I could hear the questions or the comments. I hear Diana's laugh though.
We would like to have the answer to the question of the 3 boxes.
Anybody that wants to stay, I can give you 5 more minutes worth.
We were getting ready to close up, so we were hoping that you would help us for that time. Give us the answer.
Are y'all listening to me? Oh, thank you, Pat. I can see you here. Okay, everybody in the room that has a dollar bill that doesn't have Cash App and all that other stuff, take your dollar bill out. Do I have one? Let me see. We're asking the parents, what are you going to do with your children and young adults to help them be successful in school? I have $1. If your child does not experience $1 every day, then they're missing something. That means you need to be the supervisor in the building to say something is missing. Uh-oh, that means I should have been finished by now. Sorry about that. Write on a piece of paper, D-O-L-L-A-R, dollar. Every single day. Understand? What you do in school today? Nothing. What you do in school today? Math. What kind of answers are that? Please don't accept that as answers anymore, please. Pretty please on my bad knee. D-O-L-L-A-R stands for dollar. Just add an S to the end of it. They need $1 every day. D stands for doing. That means they need to be doing the work instead of the teacher. The one who does the talking is the one who does the learning. So if I talk about math all day long, who knows more math? O, observing. They need to be able to see examples of stuff. Just like when you had a mentor, you said, oh man, she could do that. Man, I'll be able to do that too. She from around the block. I could be able to handle that. So they need to observe what it is that you want them to do. Don't say, go over there and do such and so, and they've never seen it done before. The L stands for listening. But listening has to be active. Family, listening has to be active. That means you're paraphrasing, asking questions, or validating. Not waiting for that person to finish so you can take your turn. That's not listening. So listening, make sure you have active. The L is for laughing. Child, this stuff is serious. If you don't take some time to laugh and use the affect side of your brain, you're going crazy. You have to laugh. Everybody smile. See if it hurts. Sometimes my jaws be hurting because they just be pumped all up on my face from me smiling. D-O-L-L-A is for assessing. And that's why we're here 70 years after Brown versus Board of Education. Because students have been assessed. But the assessment has been summative assessment, which means at the end, versus formative assessment throughout the time.
Thank you so very much. Let's give Dr. Rodriguez a hand. As we prepare to close, I want to say once again, thank you so very much. Let us continue to be engaged in raising our youth academically as well as socially. And as we close, I would like to give special accolades also to the organizations that have helped make this possible. The WISE organization, the WISE Knowledge Incorporated, the NAACP, Veterans Affairs, Tinsley Accelerated School, like they do the Children's Policy and Learning Initiative in Indiana, that's a part of the NAACP, Reconstruction of the African Civilization and Culture, the Aldridge Hybrid Employment-Based STEM farm program. Also would like to give special acknowledgement to the University of Queens College of Education, the Office of Andre Carson, our congressman, the National Council on Negro Women Indianapolis section, the National Sorority of PK, that's PDK, the Indiana Christian Leadership Conference, and the Andrew J. Brown Academy, the Indianapolis Public Schools. Thanks once again to Martin University. I'd like to say thanks to the Indianapolis Alliance of Black School Education, as well as the National Alliance of Black School Education. I'd like to give special thanks also to the BK Fitness Body Beauty Brain LLC. That's the 3B Fitness Body Beauty Brain LLC. Gotta keep that body beautiful, because when you do the heart, the mind, the soul, and the body does follow. The Indianapolis Urban League, the Project Ready Indianapolis City County Council Youth Commission, along with Martin Carmel Church, the She Events and She Experience. The Indianapolis Public Schools in their endeavor to continue to strive to make a better academic environment, and the Beauty Within Community Church, Indianapolis, and Love Headquarters. Once again, thank you so very much. We can all stand and just give homage to the one that is made as we prepare to dismiss. Dr. Cornelius, thank you once again. School 43, Dr. Jonathan Harris, the network president of Tinsley Accelerated Schools, Judge Gaither, Marion Superior Court, Family Division, he's in room 9, NAACP Education Committee, and you. I was just wondering, is it possible that we do a benediction or no, because it's a grant?
But there's 3 young people that I must recognize. One of the things that ICSC has started this year is working with young high school seniors that want to go to HBCUs. In the room, there are 3 of them that have contacted me, and we are in the process of finding them free rides. Elijah Brinkley is a student at Tinley, 3.9. He wants to go into agriculture, and he's applying for small HBCUs in the South. In the back, the 2 young twins, come forward, please. They're right on. These young ladies came to me through their father. The father said, my daughters are great, they're wonderful people, they need some help, they want to go to HBCUs. So they came to me and asked for some help. I reached out to the California Association Foundation that deals with HBCUs nationally. So they met with Dr. Price, and she's 3.9. They want to go to Howard. They've been accepted at Jackson State. They've been accepted at
Jackson State, Tennessee State, University of Texas Arlington, Marion University, South Carolina State, and the University. TSU and JSU, from Howard, Indiana University, so I was.
This is part of some additional work that we just fell into for the kids act for some help. So they came to us and we're going to help them. Hopefully we'll be able to get all 3 of them a full ride. That's what we're asking for. I wanted to recognize them because these are kids who are in the schools who are not being recognized by their counselors to get to an HBCU or anywhere else. So one more. Come over here. 3.6 at Tinley. I've known him since he was born. this young man and what he said. I'm so proud of you, so proud of you.
As we close now, and because I'm not sure if we can, or we have door prizes. I'm not sure, but as we prepare for the door prizes, if you could just bow your head and acknowledge where all of our strength comes from. Thank you. All right, here's the door prizes.
7803206.
Where's 206? Anybody have 206? Last three digits?
229.
229, all right.
Next one is 253. Come on up. The last three, 245. 207.
207, 207.
256.
Oh, we have a 256?
Okay, how many more we have? 230.
230? All right.
Okay, it's 227.
227, all right.
Okay, we have the last one. 207. Okay, well, try this one. 205. I'll keep going. 244. Some people. 225. 226. 254. 224. 223. 250. 244. 242. 240. Here I am.
You all have a blessed week. Happy holidays to each one of you all.
Along the wall, please take those.